and thank you for coming to Guidepost, a place where we have a safe space for growth, for change, for understanding what is coming, and for living through these changes and experiences. In the past, we've been talking about well-being, about being in a positive state of mind, about being in joy, in clarity, in grace, practicing all of these beautiful words that have a frequency, and that frequency resonates within and keeps us in that positive state. So that was the core of the presentation, was let's grow to be on peace, clarity, balance, dignity, see that light within, sense, perceive, live that divinity within, feel that spirit, that guidance, that joy that is within each of us. And as we see that guidance, that life, that spirit, that light, that divinity, that clarity within us, then we can begin to see it on others. And we need that. We need to be in that center, because we are the guides in the beautiful changes that are coming. Change is needed. Change is needed, and change is coming. Today, the legend that we have there today, there is no power for change greater than a community discovering what it cares about. By Margaret Whitley. We have to go in community. We have to have dinners with our neighbors, with our friends, so we can evolve the changes that are coming. So there is a division coming because it's needed, because we cannot continue like this. We cannot continue like this. It is needed. So if we are in our center, in our balance, in our clarity, aware of our divinity, aware of our essence, aware of that spiritual part of us, it will be not only easy to travel the journey that is ahead of us, but we will also be the change and the guide to what we want to change to. It's not only saying, oh, there is an earthquake here, there is a hurricane here, there are economical problems here, the dollar is not so firm here, my community is not so firm there, and I am in peace and balance and clarity and nothing bothers me. That is part of it, but only a third. The other 2/3 is we are the change that we want to see. Those are Gandhi's words. So if we want a change, to what are we going to change? Okay? Einstein has a beautiful phrase that a problem cannot be solved from the same level of consciousness that it was generated. You generate a problem at this level of consciousness, but you don't solve the problem there. You have to change your level of awareness or consciousness, and then from this new level, you solve the problem. You cannot go here and fix it. When you create a problem, and we create it in greed, in envy, in power, in all of those not so positive energies, when we created a problem there in greed, selfishness, We cannot go there and change the system that was created on greed and selfishness. We have to create a new system from a new level of consciousness, from a new level of understanding, from a new level of beingness. So, as the problems are already showing in our society, we see what is happening in Minneapolis. We see that there is a division in our communities. We see that there is a perception that the system is not working. Now we have to be aware that we have to create something new. But we have to create from a higher point of awareness. We have to create from a higher consciousness. So let's play here a game of imagining. And it is just a game. For now, let's imagine that we want to change our currency. Because our currency was created on greed, envy, selfishness, and monopolies. We are not going to go there and change it. We have to create something new, completely new. There is going to be people that will continue to play in that realm. There are people that will continue to do and use that currency. But there is another people that says, hey, let's have transparency, let's have clarity, let's have opportunity, let's have equity, let's have a different way of being, and then from this point of understanding, let's create something new. That is the evolution that is coming. But you have to have clarity within you to wish that. You are not going to change the previous currency system. Let it be. But your community, your friends, the group of people that you are close to, you can begin to create something different. But it's the level of consciousness that you changed. You cannot go there and change, let's say, the greedy people in Wall Street. We cannot go and change the people that love wars and conflicts in the Pentagon. They are going to continue being them. They are going to be themselves. We can create only for ourselves, for our family, community, friends, family, from a new level of consciousness. There is something in magnetics. In magnetics, the magnet has two poles, north and south. It is impossible to have a single pole magnet. There are ways to arrange magnets so you can have one pole stronger than the other. But at the end, the true use of a magnet is because of the polarity, because you can switch between north and south. I can have for a good while a monopole playing with some geometry, but the point of that geometry is to generate a rotation so I can have the dual pole change here. So at the end, that duality is needed. Those two poles are needed. So a monopole in magnetics has no point of view. I mean, it's really not that useful. The planet has a north and south pole. So can you imagine Earth with a single pole? It would not be conducive to life. So we needed two poles. We need the north and south. A monopole does not provide that beautiful life that we have in this planet. And from the monopole comes the word monopoly. Monopoly, when there is a monopole, there is a single pole that is flowing everything. And when you have a single pole, you have concentration of power, and you have all of the issues that we see in our economy today. We see greed, we see wars, we see lack of respect, we see lack of acceptance of other people, We have lack of acceptance of other religions. We have lack of acceptance of other political views because we are in a monopole. We have to be open to that other possibility. Now we go back to currency. I had the opportunity to go to the Capitol a few years ago, and it was a big surprise for me because inside the Capitol in Washington, D.C., there is a gift shop. There is a gift shop, a beautiful gift shop, inside the Capitol. And the only game that is sold in that beautiful gift shop, the only game that is sold there is Monopoly. That's what our country is. That's how I want my country to be. A monopoly on healthcare, a monopoly in communications, a monopoly on the press, a monopoly in political parties, a monopoly in points of views, a monopoly in religion. Is it truly what we are? Are we better than that? And as we are becoming a monopoly inside our country, we are also exporting that vision. So now we want to be the single currency in the whole planet, which it was for a good while. Now, there are other methods of exchange. There are other ways to trade between countries. And that brings a challenge to the monopole of the US dollar. So I remember many years ago there was an article in the Time magazine, and the title of the article was The Browning of America, which is true, it's a fact. America is been going through a browning issue, and brown refers in this case about the change in race, more people of different races and different colors, not only white, Anglos. So there is a fact there that there is a browning in America, and I don't see it as good or bad. I am part of that process too. But what I want to explain is that this browning has a cause. And the cause of this is the consequence. The consequence is the browning of America. What is the cause? The cause is the greening of the planet. So we are greening the planet, and the consequence of greening is the browning. It's that simple, because everything is cause and consequence. Nothing moves by itself. There is always two polarities. There is always something going back and forth, like the pendulum. So we go from the greening of the planet to the browning of America, the greening of the planet to the browning of America. Easy cause and consequence. What is the greening of the planet? The greening of the planet is represented by the dollar. We made the dollar the single currency, the most powerful currency. So, and we forced other nations to use our currency, the dollar. So, now that we are forcing other nations to use the dollar, it means that life here in the USA is easier than there, because they have to use a currency that is not theirs. They have to use my currency. Because they have to use my currency, life is easier here. I am not more productive. I am not smarter. I don't make anything faster or better. The currency that they have to use my currency. That makes life here easier. So what happens? Well, if I am forcing other countries to be green in the currency, at some point, somebody's going to say, hey, instead of being working here 3 years to buy a motorcycle, I better go there to the US, and in 6 months I can afford a motorcycle. So it's that easy. No, I just want to better myself. I either work for 3 years for a little Vespa, or I work 6 months for my Vespa. I better work 6 months. It's that easy. So then I leave that country and I come here because here is going to be easier. So now the greening of America is producing the browning of America. I'm sorry, the greening of the planet, because I am forcing the green dollar, is producing the browning of America. So, but we did it to such an extent that now we are driving every other single country poorer, and not only that, our own population is also poorer. We have issues with healthcare, big issues with healthcare. I can talk for hours in healthcare. I am a product of that ambience. We have issues in media. I think that in media, the monopoly is so big that we see only the news that we want to see or that they want to show us. Do we want to live in a monopoly? So all of these issues have to be addressed on the new currency. We know that we are moving from centralized to distributed. In the past, we had telephones that had to be connected by plugs, and a person had to be plugging the pins in the board. Then we went to smaller phones, and then we eventually went to cell phones. So we can see how before there was a phone in a building, and now you can have a cell phone in every single pocket. So we are traveling from centralized to distributed in everything, not only in technology, but in currency. Not only on currency, but in points of views. Before, when we grew up, in my neighborhood, everybody was of the same religion. Everybody was of the same religion. Now, we understand and are aware that are other people practicing other religions close to our community. Before, people of a different religion were seen in National Geographic. Now, they are in our communities. Everywhere. It's everywhere. Don't think that it's here only in the USA. It's everywhere. Wherever you travel, you are going to see more mix of beliefs, because we are going from centralized to decentralized. Not in technology only, but in consciousness, in awareness, in understandings, in music, in dance, in culture. So that brings us to the economic process. We are going through a metamorphosis now for the last 70 years or more, since 1944. 70 years, huh? Almost 80 years. Since 1944 that the Bretton Woods Agreement was created and canceled, the dollar was the central currency for most of the planet. And that finished in 1971 when Nixon canceled the parity of the dollar with the gold. And then that brought a change, but that change was not immediate. And the change was not immediate because there was not a system to replace the channels to which money moved through. And basically, the money moved through the SWIFT system in New York and Switzerland, and the dollar continued being the most used currency, not because it was worth it, that amount of gold, because it was not pegged to the gold anymore, but because There was the only way to trade. All of the computers were connected through New York and Switzerland. So we are going from a centralized system of currency to a decentralized or distributed system of commerce and international settlements. And that is what we want as a human being. As a human being, I cannot force my son to be an engineer like I am. I have to let him be. He wants to be an artist, go and play the violin. You want to be a pianist, go and play the piano. You have to let them be. So it's the same thing with the planet. Hey, you want to trade in rubles? Go and trade in the Russian currency. You want to trade in pesos? Go and trade in pesos. You want to trade in yens? Go and trade in yens. I don't care. You have to give that freedom to everybody. So it's like the apps that you have in the cell phone. The apps that I have in the cell phone don't look at all like the apps that my son has. Totally different apps. If I give my son the freedom to use whatever apps he wants in his phone, how am I going to tell other person that they must pay in their country through the Apple Pay? That's ridiculous. How am I going to force people in Brazil to go through Apple Pay? So that openness of the heart, that understanding of the being has to manifest on everything that we do, walk, and be. How am I going to force a currency in other people? How am I going to force payment systems because of the technology in other communities? That is not doable. We already have our own problems in the USA with the amount of money that has been printed through the quantitative easing. We have enough problems with the increasement of the budget and the debt that we have in the country. We have been monopolizing this money with a few people. Only 0.1% of the population owns 40% of the USA. Is that the country that we want to be? Is that what I want to be? No, that's not what I want to be. I see divinity. I see grace. I see beauty. I see joy. I see creativity in everybody. But no, every single day we see more and more and more signs that the monopoly is no longer working. And it's no longer working for us here in our country. And I close back with the words that I began with Albert Einstein. No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. If we created a currency from the point of view of division, greed, control, selfishness, and oppression, we cannot change that. There will be a group of people that will continue using that currency, will continue living in that belief. They will continue fighting for the monopoly. But we have to change, and a group of us have to move and think from my point of view of freedom, of light, of equanimity, of opportunity, of balance, of joy, of health, of transparency. And from this new point of view, how would my currency look like? You cannot change the past. Let the past be, let people live in that past, but we have to go and create a new currency, a new system of being, a new way of trading, a new way of sharing. Because Albert Einstein said that. No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that it was created. You can go to the Pentagon and you can see the amount of money that is being printed to be given to the Pentagon to make those arms and fights and kill people in tiny little boats in the Caribbean. Oh my God, what a big gun, what a big airplane to kill a few people in a tiny boat. We are not going to change that. That is the level of greed, monopoly that currency was created. We have, from our point of view of freedom, light, equanimity, opportunity, balance, joy, clarity, transparency, from this new point of view, we have to create the new systems to trade. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for being here.